Call the Finance Committee to order. Due to extenuating circumstances, Mr. Sheridan will be attending remotely from Florida. Excused are Rita Curran, Dave Horsley, John Jeanette, and Ben Hall. Okay, can I get an approval of the minutes? Or the agenda, motion for the agenda. Mr. Fay and Mr. Smithers, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of January 29th? Mr. Webster and Mr. Denisha. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. First up, for resolutions, we have Don Chambers of Highway. First resolution is authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Barton and Judas DPC for engineering services to replace Town Line Road Bridge over Lisbon Creek in 3366670. Can I get a motion? Mr. Fay, second, Mr. Webster. Go ahead, Don.
Yes, thank you. The reason for asking for approval of the contract to hire a consulting firm for this project is that we have two assistant civil engineers that do our drafting and a lot of the work that goes into putting plans together. And the assistant civil engineer resigned in September and have not been able to fill that position. And the other assistant civil at this point is out on leave. So we need some assistance just to bring these to the set of plans to the finish line and get it up.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Next is authorizing the mayor to sign roadside mowing contracts. Can I get a motion, please? Mr. Denisha, Mr. Fay. Okay, Don?
Thank you. On a yearly basis, we work with the towns to do roadside mowing. Towns that are listed. Contracted for $320 mile. That's for 3 times summer season. Last year we were at 305 mile.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Have a resolution authorizing the highway department to enter into a cooperative agreement with the Franklin County Highway Department for road salt. Can I get a motion? Mr. Smithers, the second, Mr. Fay. Okay, Don?
Thank you. Since 2014, St. Lawrence County has been putting out a salt bid for both counties, which covers all the municipalities in both counties. We put a bid together and has saved thousands of dollars over the course of the last 10 years doing this. I recommend moving forward with this process still, because I do believe it's the best interest of all counties.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And you had something you wanted to say, Don?
Yes, I do. Meeting this evening. I had case first.
Next up, we have Pam Lewis, Workforce Innovation Opportunity. Modifying the payroll year 23 WIO budget to transfer formula funds from dislocated worker and administration accounts to adult accounts. Can I get a motion, please? Mr. Fay, Mr. Lightfoot. Hi, Pam, go ahead.
Thank you. So under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act program, the dislocated worker funding is considerable, but we do not receive too many dislocated workers that come into the office. As far as the funding is concerned, anybody who is eligible as a dislocated worker is also eligible as an adult, but it does not go back the other way. So to best utilize the funding and to serve more individuals, we are requesting the transfer from dislocated worker to adult. As far as the administration account is concerned, throughout the majority of the fiscal year, we were short a senior account clerk for a while and then an assistant accounting supervisor for a while. So that just resulted in an excess of the administration funding that we would again like to transfer to adult to best utilize that funding and serve more individuals.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
Next up is the county attorney. First resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Atlantic Testing Laboratories to complete environmental investigation and tank drum removal on property owned by the Reddick Revocable Trust. Can I get a motion? Mr. Smithers, a second. And I'll jump too quick. Mr. Fay. Thank you. Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you. The resolution you have before you would authorize the continuation of exploration with respect to a piece of property that's down in the village of Governor area. It's known as the Reddick Trust property, owned by the Reddick Trust property, formerly a commercially utilized property that had a number of different tanks as well as drums on the site. The expenditure of this money would allow us to test the items that are contained in the drum and potentially get additional quotes for removal of those materials so that we could finish our foreclosure process and send it to auction.
Thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Smithers.
Yeah, this property, part of it's in the village and part of it's in the town. And the town and the village have expressed interest for a couple of years now in their desire to purchase this. Maybe, probably, possibly before it goes to auction. And so I forwarded their letter to you. It was forwarded in December, and I just forwarded it again a week or two ago, so you could look at it. My question is, would you like the mayor and the town supervisors to come and explain their desire to purchase this, or should this be on hold until after it's been cleaned up by the this other facility, because it needs some cleanup because it's contaminated because of the oil spillage? So they wanted me to express again their interest to purchase this property. So
Yeah, I would think it would be after we're done the cleanup before we talk about that, but I'd let Steve talk to that.
I'd be happy to. As Legislator Smithers has identified, the town of Governor and the village of Governor have been expressing interest in this property for some time. I have brought that information to the board before. I know their interest has not waned since their initial salvo into the process, but I would ask that the board hold off at least until we've reached a point where we have been able to finally close out the contamination component of the property to get it to foreclosure before we start discussing dispossessing the county of that property to the town and village.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody else? Seeing no more discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next resolution is setting a date for a public hearing for proposed local law B number to be determined for the year 2024, rescinding all previous ethics laws and amendments and adopting the St. Lawrence County Ethics Law. Can I get a motion? Mr. Lightfoot and Mr. Denisha. Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you. The resolution you have before you would establish a date for a public hearing related to the rescission of all of our prior local laws related to our ethics and the creation of a new ethics code. As I think everybody is aware, back in 2020, the New York State Comptroller's Office came through and did an audit of the performance that we have under our ethics law. And one of the things that they highlighted was that there is a significant difference between our ethics law and the ethics law that they have recommended as the model for adoption throughout the state. And that actually works to create certain power structures within our ethics law that don't appear to be as advantageous to the county or to the county structure as the state model would be. What you have before you for a local law is in fact the state template with some minor modifications to include definitional structures in there that were taken from the old ethics law, as well as identifying certain concerns that may have existed under the prior ethics law. For example, with respect to the requirement that our advisory board members file financial disclosure packets, even if those advisory board members have no policy-making function. So this ethics local law would be to bring us in line with the state, as well as to clean up certain concerns that have been raised by our ethics board, as well as the board. I do note that the local ethics law, the template ethics law as presented before you, is supported by the St. Lawrence County Board of Ethics for adoption.
Any discussion? Mr. Denisha.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to direct this to Attorney Button, if I may, please. Steve, under Article 16, confidential information. States no municipal officer or employee who acquires confidential information in the course of exercising or performing his or her official powers or duties may disclose or use such information unless the disclosure or use is required by law or in the course of exercising or performing his or her official powers and duties. Where I'm going with this, does this apply to privileged information as discussed in executive session?
So it's actually a really good question. In the absence of having a definition within the local law, we have to turn to state statute that establishes what provisions are in fact confidential and which ones are not. There are a number of different statutes that are out there that establish various levels of information that we receive in county government as being confidential. Any information acquired within an executive session by the governing body is considered to in fact be confidential. So yes, that provision would apply to executive sessions.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you all.
Okay, next up, we have a resolution from Mr. Denisha urging Governor Hochul to double the amount of funding for critically needed aging services for the 24-25 New York State budget so that older adults may age safely in place. Can I get a motion? Mr. Denisha and Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate this resolution being entertained on the Finance Committee. I know it's actually out around the finance, but I think it's the timeliness is important. I won't go into the reasons behind this resolution because I believe I stated it very clearly last month. But in a nutshell, there's not enough money allocated in the executive budget to go to our aging population. We've got lots of money in the executive budget for other ancillary things, but I would urge my colleagues to support this.
Any other discussion? Mr. Webster.
I'd like to thank Mr. Denisha. Right, that's board, and I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor, please.
Anyone else? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have a resolution adopting proposed local law for the year 2024, rescinding local law number 7 for the year 1994, banning dangerous weapons in the county-owned buildings and vehicles. I get a motion, Mr. Denisha and Mr. Fay. Any discussion on this? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, Mr. Kopenhauer. And for Mr. Jeanette. Calling on the United States Congress to pass the Affordable Connectivity Program Extension Act H.R. 6929 and Senate 3565. Can I get a motion, please? Mr. Lightfoot and Mr. Terminello. Go ahead, Jason, thank you.
Thanks very much. This resolution came out of the discussion at the broadband committee meeting. Broadband legislator Terminelli and our staff from the county planning office and a number of other broadband experienced people from around the region. And this was brought to our attention that this program has been very successful for a number of years now. Cost share for internet for low-income residents. You see in the resolution there over $4 million have been provided to about 6,000 households in the county in the last couple of years, and it's really been very helpful to provide that funding assistance. It's scheduled to begin the end of April of this year unless there's additional funding allocated for it. So, of course, that continuation of the program.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, question for Mr. Pfotenhauer, if I may.
Sure.
Can you give us a little update on where we are with respect to the last mile and the underserved areas in the county where we hopefully are making some kind of progress, or the other side of that coin would be lack of progress? So if you could help me out and the rest of us, I'd appreciate it.
Happy to speak to that. There has been a bit of a lag with the funding allocation you provided, approximately $3 million to the broadband program, I guess, for work on broadband throughout the county. Out of that $3 million, about 112,000 has been allocated so far and used for construction. And construction down in the town of Fine. Trying to think of the number of installs. 25, 30, I think, new homes have been installed. The county. What we're waiting for the other contracts, there are a total of 21 contracts allocated. One has been completed, the other 20 we're waiting on. We anticipate movement in the next, I'd say, 60 days on all of those contracts. What has been the delay is what's called a make-ready process, which means getting things ready to actually hook up the cable, the fiber cable that will connect to these homes. So the project that was down in Fine was pretty straightforward because it was buried cable. All the other projects are pole cable, so that requires pole permitting processes. That's a lengthy process because you're going through the pole owners, most of them are owned by National Grid, so it's a multi-step process to get permits from National Grid to run your fiber on these cables or on these poles. So we meet on a bi-weekly basis with the contractor that the Slip Network Solutions. We meet regularly with them for basically to get an update, to see where we're at with that, because, yeah, we want to get things going well. But they've assured us that they've got most of those permits in place now, those full permits in place, and construction will start in the very near future. And construction is really the last step. Once construction starts, things will really fall into place very quickly.
Okay, so they've identified those that are in need. And obviously, if they're getting, the power company or the phone company to sign off on these use of these poles, they know exactly where these lines are going to go, right?
Yes,
So all they've got to do then is get a crew out there to, and maybe I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but to string the wire and hook it up.
Correct.
So of the total of the 21 contracts, how many residences or businesses will that serve? And a second part to that, what remains?
Right, so the first answer to the first question is about 600, the number was 611. A little over 600 homes are installs will benefit from the allocation. The balance is about another 600 to 700. That number is really hard to pin down because it changes on a daily basis. Because people may there are other networks or other providers are doing work all the time in the county. Spectrum is installing new connections. Slick is also doing so. In other parts of the county, it's not associated. So yeah, that when we left it, the number was about 1,300. Still, yet to be served. 1,300 households yet to be served. 600 will be done through the ARPA funding.
So how long do they figure that work will take? When will it be all done? When will these 600 places be up and running?
Yeah, good question. I could go back and look specifically when the contracts for timeline and all the contracts. My recollection is that it would be before the end of this.
Thank you, Jason.
Well,
Mr. Burke?
Jason, do you know if any other contract doing work?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where their build out is. I know FiOS is a tricky one. There was anticipation of FiOS coming to a certain part of the county and probably yet, is my understanding. But I can certainly check to see if they're yes, that a couple of years ago. I don't know if there's additional.
Mr. Reagan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jason, since the broadband committee began its efforts, have we identified any additional funding to help close the gap on the additional 600-700 homes that will not be affected by this? I know they're going to be more expensive. You know, it's going to cost more to connect them. You know, this board deserves a lot of credit for reaching 600 homes. And we know that the last 700 are going to be the most difficult ones, but I'm just wondering whether we've had any luck identifying state and federal funds to help us close that gap.
There's a large allocation that will be coming through the federal government, managed by Connect All office, New York State Connect All office, that is anticipated to roll out in 2025. So when, a couple of years ago, when they first talked about this, we figured, oh, that's so far away, but it's next year now, so it's not really that far away. So there will be additional funding that we hope to be able to secure through this trickle down from the federal government to the state, and the state allocating to those underserved areas. So we're hopeful that funding source will be able to address the balance, majority of the balance of deficiency.
Have we reached out to this office to, ensure that we're in line?
Yes, yeah, we're working with the Development Authority of the North Country. They have a very close connection with the players at the office. We maybe the necessity to provide additional mappings. Get to the powers that be as required as they move forward with the funding.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Next up is vacancy review.
For vacancy review, we have the highway department, two requests, one abolish and create, and one fill. There was also a discussion at our vacancy meeting about one additional that would generally be on this agenda that we're gonna hold off on bringing forward and rework that and bring it to vacancy next month. So that's why your vacancy committee might look a little different than the agenda. First up is the abolish bridge construction mechanic and create fill motor.
Yes, thank you. The bridge construction mechanic position that I wish to abolish and then create the motor equipment operator was vacated in December. And we received no applications, either internal or externally, for bridge construction mechanic position. However, we do receive applications for motor equipment operators still. They are both pay grade 18, and a lot of the tasks can be done by a motor equipment operator. In order to fill the vacancy, at this time, I'm recommending we do.
Any discussion? Okay,
Yes, the next is vacancy equipment operator.
any questions? Thank you, John. To the American Rescue Plan Act update. Doyle.
So the update, I think you were able to hear from Legislator Lightfoot's questions, an update on the broadband. That committee has recently met. They continue pushing forward. I think now with some what seems to be clearance to get those projects done. I believe that will be able to be reported back to you within the next couple of months if we think they're going forward, or if we think there may be other challenges we need to address. But that being said, the resolution in front of you tonight is a request to consider the purchase of what is used in this scenario. I believe we started the conversation over a year ago, looking to purchase a new one, a used opportunity with 11 hours. I misspoke, I said 6, it's actually 11 hours are on from usage that the request has been asked to bring forward for consideration. Questions?
This is on the air.
Yep.
Okay. Need a motion, Mr. Reagan and Mr. Lightfoot. This.
No, Mr. Lightfoot is not seconding. this.
Okay, I thought your hand went up.
No.
Okay, Mr. Fay. Ms. Haggard, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the way. I had some pushback from constituents, specifically fire departments, who are going to have to purchase a number of radios. And they asked me if there'd still be funding available for them to buy this airboat, because they didn't, my fire department doesn't see the need for it. They want to know this. So what I'm thinking about is they're going to have to come up with money to fund these radios. Very expensive. Is this anything that she maybe?
So I think there's a couple of parts to your request. We are working through the communications system replacement, and the board has allocated $5 million toward that effort. That does include radios. There is a formula that we're using that's tried and tested in Jefferson County that will provide every department with a number of radios based on a formula that they're all aware of. There is a gap, as I understand, between what that formula will provide and what is desired. You could argue the interpretation of need for all departments. And so there, I think, is an opportunity. Our emergency services director, Mr. Denner, is out now. Some of you, I know you attended the one in your district, to have the additional conversation between what is being provided through the formula and what their goal is. It's important, I think, in that conversation for the local municipality to have the proverbial skin in the game and to budget. They're working on their budgets now to have some opportunity to know those expenses and to prepare for some of those for what they'd like to have. But I also asked to get a number associated with the difference between what we're providing in the formula and what is their individual goals. And I'm willing to bring that request back to the board in some margin between the two, not to fully fund every single radio that they'd like to have, but something reasonable that perhaps the formula did provide. I can't speak to whether the board will look favorably upon that, but that is something that I've talked with Matt about bringing back to the board.
I know there's been quite a bit of discussion on this, and there's a few people out that would like to talk about that, and I was wondering if somebody would table this, put a motion to table this till next meeting.
Second.
Okay. No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
could I just make a comment about the resolution here and the requests by the fire service to fund these portable radios?
certainly.
Just recently, St. Lawrence County provided to the towns and the villages and the city of Ogdensburg $3 million plus in excess sales tax money. Okay, this comes 2 months into their year 24 budget, so it is found money. It is money that has not. Well, I think everybody could hear me without that. It's not money that they've had to appropriate or anything. It is extra money coming in. And to me, it sickens me to think that we are supposedly the people and the entity that is supposed to pay for all this stuff when these people, fire service and the towns and the villages, knew darn well that this was coming up. It's been in their back pockets, the notifications, for better than 2 years. And obviously, little to no planning has been done on their part. But they will take $3 million, which I'm sure would go a long way towards paying for that, these radios and whatnot. And now they want to trade it off, with an airboat. Or some of them do anyway. So I just think that the wise thing to do is to move this to the next meeting and hold it in advance. But I'll tell you, you will not see me voting in favor of that, and probably not for the airboat either.
Yeah, from my understanding, the fire departments are being allotted radios for certain personnel chiefs, and there's a certain number they each get, depending, and then any of the extras that would be on their own. And there's, I think, 3 or 4 different levels of these radios that they can purchase.
If I may,
Sure.
I had a conversation at one of my board meetings, one of my town board meetings with one of the fire service. And it was brought up, hey, how much is the county gonna go, footing the bill for these radios? Is how much these radios cost, these portables? This is around $3,200-3,300 a piece. That's a lot of money.
That's for the.
That's a
basic.
lot of money. And if you think of everything else that we've got on our plate, that we are going to spend, have spent, or would like to spend, that's a big chunk out of it. My feeling.
I think that's the base model as well, because the models go up with the more features, and I think they get up to $8,000 if I'm not mistaken.
It's really expensive.
Yeah. So, but I do know there was some questions, that the highway department is getting 109 of them. I guess I'd like to know at some point, maybe if you get that, where 109 of them will go. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Next up. Authorizing the chair to sign a contract with New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services for the generator project. Project. Motion. There's Mr. Denise.
Not generally one, you can see my office bringing forward for emergency services and homeland security. But it's a grant that was submitted in 2 parts, and I'll have Jim speak to it. But we're very excited that we've been successful in this endeavor, and it does require a match from the county, which you see there in the budget modification. But excited to talk to you about what we're hoping to do with this.
Yeah, as Ruth said, this is pretty exciting. Planning was able to secure a grant for us for $437,000 to install a full building generator. The 400 kW generator, 600 amp, transfer switch, foundation, and gas line, so critical facility that will. So tonight we're just asking for approval on this.
I think when the building was built in 2001, as an office building structure, there wasn't necessarily a need at that time. Since that time, we now have our public health clinic located there. We do have a small generator that will power the generator at the clinic, but we also recognize that times like the pandemic require that building to be operating much outside of the traditional 8 to 4 Monday to Friday schedule. But also understanding, as you see with the cost of this, that it's something that we wouldn't necessarily seek as a necessity, but finding that a grant would provide us the opportunity, it really is encouraging that this may also be another asset to us during an emergency.
Any discussion? Mr. Lightfoot.
Has there been any decision made on what exactly you're going to get? What the output of it is, or what's needed?
Yeah, we met with a representative to help us size it. We got 400 kilowatt. That's we looked at our previous energy bills, our usage, and made sure this was going to say all of the heat pumps kicked on.
Okay. So if the lights go out over there, that generator is able to handle everything within that building? Thank you.
Question, we have what, like 7 years left on ownership of that bill?
We do 8 years.
8 years?
Is it a Cummings?
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is a resolution, retiree health insurance coverage for employees and non-represented. I get a motion. Mr. Smithers and Mr. Webster.
This resolution comes to you after looking at some of the eligibility requirements associated with retirement insurance. You see in this resolution and at HR's request, we've continued to try to keep all of the categories of employees together so that you can not have to track down multiple resolutions. If you were hired before this date, these are the criteria. If you were hired between these dates, this is the criteria. But this new request comes to you requesting to step back a little bit from the change that we made a few years ago that would move our eligibility and retirement from 15 years to 10. Now, for many, many years at the county, the number was 5. So you would come to work for the county for 5 years and you'd be eligible for health insurance and retirement. And that changed some years ago and the number increased to 15. With both respect to the change we're seeing in our workforce, we don't any longer consider ourselves a career employer. I don't know that anyone can these days, but also trying with respect to understand both for appointed and elected officials, this would, in most cases where the appointments are 4 years, this would almost be 3 full appointments. Now, remember, working in our departments are elected officials as well. Consider running for an office that might be elected. They give up at this point the opportunity to have those benefits. So we also appreciate that not always is it appropriate for folks that work here already to ascend into an elected position, but this allows them to be eligible for health insurance on the other side of that if they are successful. And they bring into that role, should they be successful, the knowledge of how the county works and how their department works. So those are some of the considerations when we look at recruiting, when we look at retention. We're not trying to change everything all at once. What we're trying to do is look at a few pressure points and identify opportunities to address them. This does not make it easy. There still has to be 10-year committed service to the county. There are also requirements of being eligible or in the plan for 5 years, eligible in the New York State retirement system, and being at least 55 years old. So we didn't remove all the criteria. What we did was we reduced it from 15 years down to 10. Questions?
Seeing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next resolution, establishing a health insurance premium payment policy for St. Lawrence County retirees and eligible employees. You get a motion. Mr. Smithers, Mr. Denise, Gordon.
So historically, human resources have been, we bill the retirees. And historically, we've allowed a 4-month grace period for payments to come in. I believe that that 4 month was based on our ability as a self-insured entity to go back and terminate someone retroactively back 4 months. So we wouldn't necessarily be out anything. So they would then be billed everything within those 4 months if they don't pay up, right? So, but we've also not had the opportunity to ever actually have to remove anybody from coverage. So they've always kept up. We've allowed partial payments that would keep them up. So normally we keep everybody under about a 4-month period, but just recently that 4 month has kind of moved out for one retiree, one specifically is now up to 6 months out. They're making partial payments. We haven't let them go yet, but it would be really nice if we had a policy that could direct us exactly what to do when this type of thing happens, because we know everybody's very careful and very sensitive to, you know, removing a retiree from health insurance. So we'd like to put in place a policy that would tell HR exactly what to do. And we would continue to do after the 1st month, we would continue to send out the delinquent notice. You are 1 month overdue. After the 2nd month, you're 2 months overdue. After the 3rd month, you're 3 months overdue. The 4 months, then that's when we would do the termination letter. So we've been doing those letters all along. We've kept everybody under pretty much the 4 month mark. 4 to 5 people maybe were on our list at any given time. It's risen up to about 17 now. I think we're down to about 15 now. But we still have that one straggler that's above the 4 months. And so we've communicated with this person specifically. We've communicated several times and she keeps promising to bring the payment, and then that week will go by and not a payment. So she's 6 months overdue. She was 7 months at one point. She's down to 6 months overdue. She did bring in $900. She said she was going to bring $900 in 2 weeks in a row. She didn't show up the second week for it. We just really would like something that tells us exactly what to do and that we should be cutting them off at 4 months if they do not pay. We would continue to have the policy, and what we do is once they're off, they're off. They don't get to come back on the health insurance. We would now stop with a policy that I have attached, stop allowing partial payments. They would have to be in 1 month increments at least. So they could always be like 3 months or 4 months behind, but when that 4 month mark hit, if they don't give us a full month's premium to bring them down to 3 months, then they'd be off. So that's just kind of the change that we're looking for, and just something in writing so that we have something to back us up.
And the board expressed great concern about folks who may have encountered some type of health challenge that doesn't allow them to either receive their mail, they've relocated, been put into some type of assisted living. So HR also has a way to deal with that.
Yep, so now what we're gonna do in our retirement package, when we sit down with, we've already created a form actually, is gonna be a designation form for someone other than that person. So that we have that in their packets now, we already created it, it's going in every retirement package. When we sit down, we'll also go over the form with them. And also what we'd like to do, which I haven't asked for the funds yet, but we'd like to send out in our next billing, a return envelope, paid return envelope with a designation form sent to the retirees so that we can try to get that on track earlier. I would have to try to come up with some money for the preloaded postage, but that's it. So we're gonna do that. But we are very good about, contacting them by phone. When they're overdue, we're on the phone. We're trying to get to them. We hit that 3 month mark, we're definitely all over that, right? So I don't want you to think, and like I said, usually it's only 4 that are sitting out there, 4 or 5 at any given time. So we just kind of jumped up there on us.
Mr. Smithers.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this forward. I can't imagine doing your job, keeping track of 800 plus employees when you have a number like that. It's good to have, and you need to have something that's definite, concrete, objective, and that's what this does. So I think it's what we need. So looks good.
Mr. Lightfoot.
When people come to work for the county and go to HR and, fill out all the paperwork and everything, do they have to fill out some kind of paperwork applying for coverage, medical coverage from the county's plan?
So when you retire, you can only get health insurance in retirement if you're already.
No, I'm not talking about retirement.
Right, so
I'm talking about somebody coming to work and they have the opportunity to waive it or take it.
Yes.
What do they have to fill out in order to take it?
So we have enrollment,
What?
an enrollment form that
Okay,
they have to fill out.
all right.
And it does collect some contact information, but after people retire, they will have already been on it for years, right? So
Understand.
that form isn't re-upped, it's not updated or anything. So when people retire, they often move, right? So we don't always have phone numbers, and we don't even have phone numbers of people. So we just recently actually started doing an emergency contact form in the orientation.
Well, I'm not quite so worried about that. I mean, particularly with that third-party notification, I think that's a great idea. My thought is that like anything else, if you are signing up for something that's going to be provided to you, i.e. medical coverage, you have to sign that you want it and that you agree to whatever the payments are, okay? And now so to me, you've already got something in hand that I would think would contractually obligate that person to pay their bills. And I mean, it's like anything else, and I think that it may have been discussed elsewhere. But I think that it's like anything else. If you've got a car insurance policy, if you've got medical, you don't make your payments, and I don't think they give you 4 months. They're done. It stops. And I think that no good turn goes unpunished, as is said. And to make an exception for somebody who does not follow what they say they're going to do and just keeps moving this forward, that's not the way to do it. And God knows what we could be looking at down the road, with anybody else. We're setting a precedent here. I don't like those kinds of precedents. So, my feeling would be, is that, that be pointed out to this person, that unless, this person makes the county whole for what's owed within that, your coverage is, going to be terminated and you won't have anything.
I think one of the differences is when you first sign up, it comes out of your check automatically. And then when you retire, you have to actually pay for it.
Mhm.
That's my impression. And that's what the issue has become. Go ahead.
And I think also, one of the reasons Johnny's bringing this forward is we have tried to work with folks. It has crept up. The number I think she shared at the time when we brought it forward was 13,000. Now this will provide the department with the policy guidance to make those types of assertions that are backed up by county policy on a consistency basis. Up until now, there hasn't been. And so it's very difficult to just decide this person isn't going to get it, like you said, because the precedent has been, we've been trying to work with people. So now they can give them the set amount of months when people start to work here, they'll know this. And when they make those decisions in retirement, they'll get the letters and the communications. There'll be clear guidance on that.
Is that not provided to them, when they leave, when they get, everything? This is what you have to do for retirement. This is what you have to do for, whatever. This is what you have to do for your health insurance. I mean, are you telling me they walk out the door and don't know that?
They do. We do have that talk with them. We also send a monthly bill. They get a monthly bill from us. They see their monthly bill.
And we send out tax bills, and if you don't pay it, we take your house. And it doesn't make any difference if they're sick, well, whatever. So that would be my feeling.
Ms. Hager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You may have missed this, so excuse me if this piece misses. First of all, I think this is extremely fair. Get retired, retirement insurance through my former employer, and they don't allow. So what are you gonna do with the 15?
Well, there's only one that's over the 4 months.
Okay,
Everybody else is under.
okay, damn.
Yeah.
Okay,
One that's over.
that's a discussion for.
Mr. Burke.
Should have a policy. Number.
The $24.5 billion going to the illegal immigrants to go to the elderly. Mr. Denisha.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and I agree with Don. Obviously, we need a policy. That's how we've gotten in trouble before. Not have a policy. Well, if you have a policy, everyone is treated the same. When I think about the loans, we have and it goes back to my resolution. We have just forgiven many millions of dollars worth of student loans to some of the wealthiest people. And yet, we can't, it's another example that we. I guess, on the payments, you know, when someone is employed, they have the option of having the premiums taken out. When someone's retired, do they not have that option?
We don't provide the retirement checks. We don't write checks. So we can't.
Yeah, that comes out of the retirement system.
We can't.
Could that not be, is that impossible to have it?
I would think that would change the whole retirement system on the state level, wouldn't it?
We can't do that. Yeah, we can't. We can't. Checks. It's straight from New York State. New York State pays them their pension, and then they pay us for the health insurance. So once they're not an employee, we don't pay them anymore. We can't pull anything from their checks because we're not paying.
Sure. But you're retired, PNY, because you're I'm assuming you still get state health insurance.
Yes,
Do you have to pay for it or is it done?
I have to pay for it.
You do.
Yes, I do. It's withheld every month. And it just went up $100 a month. Probably John's did too.
Go ahead, John.
Well, no,
What's
different,
the difference,
different
though,
system.
Before it's taken out. So there's an advantage. The state will do everything. We should.
Is that something we get a resolution for?
Yes.
Mr. Lightfoot.
Just to put a point on what John said about it being taken out before taxes. That's not accurate. It's taken out, but it's not before taxes or anything. When you get your form, you get your gross pay. And then they take out of it your health insurance or, you know, whatever else they're gonna take out of it. And then the net is what you get for your monthly payment. There's no tax, if you decide not to have any taxes withheld from your retirement, none of them are withheld. The only option you have, if you're going to file a long form and not take the standard deduction, you can deduct if you fall within certain percentages of your gross income, the amount of your sick leave, or excuse me, your medical insurance. But it's not a matter of there's no tax on that. And I think that's what John was alluding to, that it's taken out and it's not taxed. That's not so.
I don't think it's included in your gross income for income tax.
Yes, it is.
Mr. Webster.
If you're not having taxes taken out, you're not gonna see it on your paycheck. But if you're having taxes taken out, that part is taken out of your income before you're taxed for the money you're bringing home. In other words, if 200 a month, you're getting $1,000. If you're not getting taxed, you're not gonna see any of that. If you're having tax taken out, that 200, you won't get taxed on that, you get taxed on the 800, not the 1,000.
Anyways, back to the resolution. Any other questions on the resolution? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, motion carried. Thank you, Connie. Next is a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a renewal agreement with Securitas Security Services for the provision of security services at the Harold B. Smith Building. Are you speaking? Oh, hi, Joe.
Hey, can everybody hear me?
Just a minute. Can I get a motion? Mr. Smithers, a second. Mr. Burt, go ahead. Joe. Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome, great. So a little while back, we received notice from our security company that while we had renewed our contract with them, their state contract had expired, which voided the contract that we signed a little while ago. So we contacted them and are requesting this extension right now, realizing a slight increase in cost to buy us some time to decide whether or not we want to continue with this company or explore any number of other options. In 2023, our cost was basically $33.32 an hour per officer. This new contract would be $34.50 an hour. The way that totals out is last year it was $131,681. That's going to pop up about $5,000 to $136,896 for the 2024 year. So I think the numbers are acceptable to go ahead and do this to give us some time with them while they either figure out their state contract issue or we take a look at another option. So I would ask you to move this resolution forward because without it, we will not have security in the building.
Any discussion? Mr. Burke?
I think somebody asked this last week, but is that, the money that we have to pay, is that locked in for just a year? Is this just a short-term gap type of thing, Joe, or?
Yeah, the amount is based on the contract term, so it's locked in for this 1 year term of this contract.
Mr. Smithers?
Yeah, Joe, what does that figure out to? Between 3% and 4% more?
Maybe even less than that. It's $5,000 out of $136,000. It's been a long day. My math skills are lacking right now, but it's in that vicinity for you, sir.
State funded? State funded.
Yes. That number, Joe?
The sound is breaking up. Could you repeat that, ma'am? I'm sorry.
How much was it, is it reimbursed from the state?
I would have to check the reimbursement rate. I don't know right now. I do know we've used this company for the last 20 years or so. And they provide a decent service for us. But I couldn't tell you right now exactly what the reimbursement rate was. It's somewhere in my head, I'm thinking 71%, but I'm not sure.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you all.
Joe.
Thank you, sir.
Next up, Carly, modifying the 2022 budget for the Public Health Department for the preschool program. Can I get a motion, please? Mr. Burke, second, Mr. Tanisha. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this resolution is to adjust our
Couldn't quite hear you. What percent of that would be reimbursed to us and what percent is the county's cost? You might have said it, but I couldn't hear.
so I didn't mention it. I don't have that.
Mr. Lightfoot?
Am I not correct that none of this is reimbursed? That it's a total county cost?
Preschool, no, we do receive some reimbursement.
Oh,
We usually end up along about $750,000.
am I going under the false recollection that over the years, we've lamented that we pay $1 million a year for pre-K transportation? And that it is a county cost unreimbursed?
I thought it was partial reimbursed, but I'm not.
And this is classroom costs, not transportation.
Okay, all right, then that's for the mix. Okay.
Any other discussion? Did you want to speak more? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have modifying the 2023 budget for the Public Health Department due to an increase in expenses in the Preventative Services Program. I get motion, Mr. Smithers, Mr. Denisha.
So this one, we're just looking to, again, catch up our grants. We had some additional expenditures from our emergency preparedness grant. We were able to purchase a birthing kit, so should we need to respond during an emergency event, we'd be able to have supplies we needed that for giving birth. So that we bought some emergency kits for our staff. We also have pitch for PPE that we
Any discussion? None, all in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next up, the sheriff, authorizing pay adjustments for the medical director and medication assisted treatment position for the St. Lawrence County Correctional Facility. I get a motion, Mr. Burke, and a second.
Big, like stated, patient visits. Like to have them distributed equally out over the pay periods, rather than being billed for 2 one pay period and 10 the next pay period. So we looked at last year's average and we come up with a figure for that. Currently, Dr. Crane is the medical director, has assumed additional responsibilities, and I think it would be fair to compensate him at $2,000 a month, the same as Dr. Pat. So that's kind of what this is about. I'll let Administrator Harper speak a little more on this.
Yeah, just to distinguish the two positions, Dr. Crane is the overall facility medical director, so he oversees everybody and they operate under his umbrella. Dr. Path is the provider for the MAP program, which was the state mandated program back in October of 22. So, you know, we've constantly reviewed that program over the last year and couple months. And in order to provide stability to the program and the consistency, we're hoping to keep in line with the requests of the providers to keep them interested in working in the facility.
Any discussion, Mr. Smithers?
So what would your estimation be of how much additional this is going to cost the county to make this change in a year's time?
Dr. Path, it actually isn't going to increase anything. In 2023, he saw an average of about 17.7 inmates per week. Right now, he's actually seeing more than that per week. Our numbers have gone up a little bit. So that budget shouldn't change at all. It's just making a consistent pay week to week. Dr. Pring, he doesn't necessarily see a lot of patients. He comes in to cover when necessary for the nurse practitioner when they're not there, or Dr. Path when he's not there. So I don't really see a big adjustment in the overall budget for the positions.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Burke? I'm good. Jim, can you turn your? I'm sorry.
Good idea, make sure we keep qualified staff, we know what we went through. We don't want to. It's good that you're correct.
Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Is there any other old business? How about any new business? Mr. Smithers?
I have a question, that was brought to me. I'm not sure how valid this is, but on our auctions that we've been having, and we're online now. And the question is, does this create a hardship for the number of Amish families that we have? A lot of them don't really use computers too much. So have you experienced any concern about their ability to participate in this online auction for the tax delinquent properties?
To your point, I don't have any information on that. Do you?
No, we can ask the treasurer, how they manage that. I know there are still paper copies provided, but we can find out more details and share that with you next week. That be okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Maybe they'd be able to go to maybe like a library or over to somebody. Else.
And I'm not sure.
These auctions, a lot of the bids come in like at the end, so
Yeah.
it's like you have to be online in order to really do the job.
Any other new business? I have some. There's been some concern, some people have been, bringing this up. Social media being used, on company time. And I don't believe we have a policy. And I think that is something we should look to have a policy so that social media isn't being utilized throughout the day, during the work hours. If everybody would be in agreement to that. If anybody has anything more to say?
I don't think we'll be out of line. Most corporations, any other place of employment, that have guidelines. You don't have.
Ms. Haggard?
Are you talking about employees using county computers or their own devices?
It could be both on company time. If they're posting throughout the day during company time, I can understand during their lunch or their break. But there's been some complaints of rampant use throughout the whole day. Not everybody, but there's certain people that are doing that, and I think it should be addressed.
Thank
Is that good? Thank you. Anybody else have anything else for new business? Then we can move on to committee reports. Mr. Denisha, Cornell Cooperative Extension Board.
Mr. Chair, I have something to report.
Okay. Mr. Sheridan, Fish and Wildlife Management Board, do you have anything to report?
Here we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Fish and Wildlife has not met since the last report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Terminelli, Fisheries and Advisory Board.
We meet tomorrow night, so I'll have a quarterly or an every other month report at our next finance meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Smithers, Governor Fair Board.
Okay, I'm bringing up my minutes of the meeting here. Governor Fair Board met on February 7th, and looks like the same officers are elected for this year as last year. They're planning the Governor St. Lawrence County Fair schedule for the coming year, and the format is pretty similar as far as the nights set aside for certain events to take place as in previous year. Concert for Saturday, I have some names here. I don't know who these people are, but maybe you do. Low Cash and David Lee Murphy on Saturday. Okay, they've been given a stipend to spend on racing items. There's a construction of a new barn. It's going to be taking place. Having a spring derby on May 5th. Admission fee be $10. Pumpkin Festival scheduled for September 21st and 22nd of this year. And that's about all I have to reflect on that.
Thank you. I did mention to you earlier, my thoughts on the eclipse. Maybe the Governor Fair might be hosting something for that.
I will send them that message.
Thank you. And we'll just move right into highway and solid waste.
Nothing additional to report. I did receive a memo from the commissioner regarding some clarification of some roads in the town of Fowler. So imagine that'll be my or so that needs to be straightened out. So that's an item that's pending. And we've had some discussion on the recyclables. So I imagine we'll be talking about that more in the future. What can be done with that? I am interested. I haven't heard any more about opening of a tire recycling facility in Harrisville. If anybody has any more information on that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Reagan, the IDA.
The IDA will report, or will be meeting tomorrow, so I have no reason to.
Recreational Trails Advisory Board, I was unable to attend, so I don't have a report for that. Mr. Forsythe is not here for the RVRDA, has he given list? Okay. Moving on to Mr. Webster, St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce.
Yep. Chambers are full swing. They're ramping up for promotion for the Eclipse. They have rack cars and all kinds of printed stuff that's going up all over. And this is not the Terminator. This is our own Ben Dixon on the screen here. These are the glasses that you can buy for $3. They'll be available at their the store right there in the corner, their offices, and they're also going to drop some off here at Ruth's office if anybody wants them. They're $3 a piece. They're also advocating legislation right now for the VRBOs. They're doing, they got a lot going on. Their trade shows are ramping up and they're getting ready for the summer. Sounds like it's going to be a really busy summer. We look forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Burke, Soil and Water Conservation District Board of Directors.
The county forester is getting ready for the annual tree sale. He's also been working on the forest management plan for county forests. I did say something that I thought was interesting. It said that because we've over harvested for so many years that it would be at least 20 years. They haven't started marking trees for the next rotation of ash. Crop specialist, she's finishing up a couple of management plans that will allow certified crop specialists. She's very close. Which is a big boost for agriculture to have somebody. The board voted to have to help refurbish call it a greenhouse tunnel. Installed it. High tunnel. high tunnel that belongs to Crawford. Soil and water is going to be used, RT funds, state help, rebuild that because it's in pretty bad shape. It's used by, well, Crawford Extension, but also used soil and water thought that it would be a good partnership to, and the only other thing, board member Becky Allen is, and any other reports? We have need for executive session.
We do for 6:1.
Motion to go into executive session, Mr. Smithers second, Mr. Fay, all in favor? If there's no further business, we're adjourned. Hey, Bill, we got 70-degree weather coming here this week. Have a good night.